السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. لعل النضال الكشميري من أجل الحرية يمتد اليوم إلى الجيل الرابع، جيل ما فتئ يكافح ويضحي وينهض ويتابع من أجل حقوقه المكفولة أمميا. هو نضال سيستمر حتى تحقيق المصير، مع الناشطة والفنانة الكشميرية موشال مالك، وحكاية معاناة إنسانية من الداخل. معكم زينب صفار، تابعوا. هي جبهة تحرير جامو كشمير، منظمة سياسية علمانية أسسها أمان الله خان ومقبول بات عام 1965 كجناح عسكري لجبهة الاستفتاء، ينشط أفرادها على جانبي خط الهدنة بشطريها الباكستاني وعاصمته مظفراباد، والشطر الهندي وعاصمته شرينغار، بقيادة محمد ياسين مالك، الزعيم الانفصالي الكشميري الذي يدافع عن فصل كشمير عن الهند وباكستان، والذي أعلن بعد عام 1994 وقف إطلاق النار لأجل غير مسمى. وقيل وقت ذاك إن الجبهة قامت بحل جناحها العسكري وألزمت نفسها بالكفاح السياسي ونبذ العنف من أجل تحقيق هدفها المتمثل في استقلال المنطقة بأكملها. ثم في أكتوبر 2011 توحدت الجبهة. تجدر الإشارة إلى أن أزمة كشمير ظهرت في أعقاب حصول الهند وباكستان على استقلالهما من بريطانيا عام 1947، حيث منحت كشمير ذات الغالبية المسلمة الحرية في أن تنضم إلى الهند أو باكستان، فاختار حاكمها المهراج الهندوسي هاري سينغ أن يميل إلى جانب الهند وتنازل عن سلطات رئيسية لنيودلهي مقابل حصوله على مساعدات عسكرية لحماية والوعد بإجراء استفتاء في معرفة رغبات شعب الإقليم، غير أن الهند ترفض حتى الآن إجراء هذا الاستفتاء، بينما تصر باكستان وشعب كشمير على إجرائه، مدعومين بعدة قرارات أصدرتها الأمم المتحدة تمنح الكشميريين حق تقرير المصير. موشال حسين مالك، رئيسة منظمة السلام والثقافة وزوجة المعتقل السياسي ياسين مالك، مؤسس جبهة تحرير جامو وكشمير، تشرح من الداخل القضية الكشميرية وكيف انخرطت كناشطة في هذا النضال الطويل والمؤلم في منطقة تعد بين أكثر المناطق عسكرة في العالم.
A part of my mother's family belongs to Srinagar, but apart from that, as you know, love is blind. So there was a spiritual and a calling of love for Kashmir. I fell in love with a freedom fighter, Yassin Malik. This was back in 2005. I was very young at that time. And things just started, happening one after the other. And as a child, I remember when I was in Pakistan, I grew up here and my schooling in Pakistan. I used to collect funds for children of conflicts, the Palestinian kids, the Kashmiri children, the Bosnians used to be here, even the Somalians. So the family atmosphere at home was very encouraging towards people of conflict. And that's how I was grown that, we should become friends with them, because a lot of them used to come to Islamabad. So that was a part of it, but I didn't know that destiny was actually calling me to the forefront of the freedom struggle. But it was always like, my heart used to feel a lot of pain. And in 2005, when the freedom fighters, the Hurriyat leadership, the liberation leaders, you could say, when they visited Pakistan during the peace process of General Musharraf, if you remember, that was a big moment of celebration, because they were coming right from the bridge of the Yellow Sea. And they were welcomed, they were given a hero's welcome. And when they came to Islamabad from Muzaffarabad, my mother was in politics in that regime. She was a member of the Central Executive Committee of the Pakistan Muslim League. So as always, my parents would always encourage us and talk about regional and global politics and what's happening in the world, because they didn't want us just to be stuck to our books. So my mother told me, I had just finished my exam that day, and she said, dear, we have to go and you have to come along, because it's a historical day, because for the first time, the liberation leaders are coming here. You've seen them on the television. They're always incarcerated. They're leading such a big struggle, and you would get inspired. And yes, I was so excited. I went there and
you got inspired to the extent of falling into love.
No. At that time, I had no clue that, my future husband
is going to
would be there. And the moment we reached, we were a little late. So we got the back chairs, and he was reciting the verses of this revolutionary poet, Faiz Ahmed Faiz. And the verses were very intense. They were about liberation. I would like to say a few verses. ये धरती धड़ धड़ धड़केगी, हम देखेंगे, जब ताज उछाले जाएंगे, हम देखेंगे. Meaning that we will wait for that time when these rulers, these conquerors will be vanished, will be removed from this face of earth, and we will be liberated. So that had such an impact, a strong impact on my mind and on my soul, because there were so many cameras in front. I could not see his face because we were on the back seats. But his voice, seriously, Zainab, it shook my soul. And that was the moment I was like, I have to meet him. I had no clue that, what will happen in the future. And I took his autograph, and he was very kind. And then he invited us to a signature campaign in Islamabad, where he had collected 1.5 million signatures of people from Indian administrated Jammu and Kashmir. He had walked on foot to almost 300 villages, and he had collected signatures.
1.5 million.
Yes,
wow.
It's a huge number. That the people of Kashmir want freedom, and they want a peaceful solution to it. So we went to his exhibition like other visitors. The Prime Minister inaugurated, I remember, at that time it was Shaukat Aziz Sahab, and he inaugurated the whole exhibition. There were diplomats, ambassadors, there was foreign media. It was a lot of hype that, this peaceful political way of garnering support from the Kashmiri people is highly commendable. And I myself was very impressed, obviously, and I left my remarks on the acknowledgement book, not knowing that, leaving my email address or my contact number, I would be contacted and be proposed the next day. And we came home, and he called up on that number. He spoke to my mom. And my mom, being in politics, naturally, and even if you're not in politics, people of Pakistan, people around the world, they feel sympathetic towards the people of Palestine and Kashmir.
Exactly.
Because these struggles are legitimate, legal struggles, indigenous struggles to the right of self-determination and to protection of their lands, because they are the real heirs of that land. So she sent a lot of prayers to him on the phone. And then he said that, can I speak to your daughter? So for a moment, my mother was a little hesitant. But then she said, yes, why not? And I spoke to him very formally, just as any young student would be, or any would be in awe of talking to such a powerful, such a personality yes. who has achieved so much. Just like, Yasser Arafat, you have Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King. So you're in that awe that, liberation leaders. And then he wants to speak to me. And I was very nervous. And we just exchanged, hello, how are you doing? And he said that I'm leaving tomorrow. So I had a wonderful time here. And I said, I hope you come again to visit Pakistan. And he said, I really like Pakistanis. And then Zainab, I was like, very nice. That's so sweet of you. We love Kashmiris. And my family is also in Kashmir, in Srinagar. And he was so pleased. And then he said, I'm in love with you. And that was a big shock. It was so fast and so quick that I got scared for a moment. And I just hung up on him. And then later on, how things unfolded.
Yeah.
And I realized that he's
But today, how can you tolerate being that much away from your husband? Tell us about, the suffering that you are passing through and what happened to Yassin Malik.
Yeah, the sufferings not just of my husband, the entire nation, have just gone to the highest level. Students cannot go to school. There are economic blockades for months and months. Pellets are used. Even phosphorus shells have been used in many incidents. Ambulances are attacked. There are no medicines available there, very few, and then the vaccines are expired. Doctors are attacked, and it is worse than even a war, because even in a war, you have a right to protect yourself. You have an army to defend you when there are two armies fighting. So this is a war imposed on an unarmed nation. And when my husband, who is at the forefront of it, apart from the other leadership, he has faced extreme torture during the past 3 years, especially after the brutal killing of this young boy, Burhan Wani, if you recall. And he had, naturally that boy had picked up the gun, but he was forced to pick up the gun. But he had not killed anybody, Zainab. He had just made some video messages in which he gave a message to India that we do not want our demography to be changed. We do not want people who are not Kashmiris, who are not state subject holders.
And there is a systematic attempt to change the demography
of Kashmir. And they did a bit of that, a lot of that, in fact, in 1947 in Jامو area, where they slaughtered the RSS people. It was on record. They slaughtered lakhs and lakhs of Muslims. And now that is a city, a region of temples. You just have Hindus. So they've changed the population ratio there. And now the same government, which is in power right now in India, which is the RSS, the BJP, they are following that same manifesto of abrogating Article 370, which protects the demography or the special status of the Kashmiri people. And to a large extent, the Palestinian people have suffered in the same manner. The demography changes to divide, keep on dividing, and, trying to make the Palestine
dismember the country and the area over there and the people.
So it is a scary situation, because I have not seen my husband for the past 3.5 years, and he has not been issued a passport. His passport was snatched 5.5 years back. And the way I was treated, especially my daughter, 3.5 years back.
You filed consecutively for a visa, but you were never granted.
I used to file for a visa. I used to get the visa when I used to go there. But for the past 3.5 years, it's very risky for me to go there. Because I can't, as a mother, I cannot take the risk of my daughter going there, because they would humiliate me. They would take their guns out and point them towards a little baby. And you like India, Pakistan. I mean, what is her? She doesn't even know what a gun is. So those were very testing times for me. And we were attacked in Delhi also. We were not allowed to stay there. We were on the roads all the time, because whenever I have to travel to Srinagar, I have to go via Delhi. And having a little baby in your lap in the cold winters, you're not being, it's a state policy that Malik and her family would not be allowed to stay. So where would we go? This small gift, the only happiness in Yasin's life, especially, if you look at his entire political struggle since his childhood, has been solely devoted to the right to self-determination. When he was 14 years old, he put a sticker on the wall of Free Kashmir, and there he was taken to the torture cells and he was brutally tortured. So it was really, Zainab, it was a miracle that we even had a child. Because, the kind of tortures, he has been electrocuted, all his organs, his body has been burnt so many times. So, but I never got married to him with this thinking that, I would have a safe or secure future. I knew that this is going to be very, very tough for us. But the only gift that he has is Razia, and the only happiness. So he didn't want her to suffer at such a tiny age and to, become another victim.
Right, Michelle, allow us to stop now for a short break, and then afterwards we're going to highlight the human rights violations in Kashmir and the plight of the Kashmiri women in particular. إذا فاصل قصير ونعود، لا تذهبوا بعيدا.
موشال حسين مالك رئيسة منظمة السلام والثقافة وزوجة المعتقل السياسي ياسين مالك مؤسس جبهة تحرير جامو وكشمير تسلط الضوء على انتهاكات حقوق الإنسان في كشمير ولا سيما محنة النساء والأطفال الكشميريين.
Kashmiri women, Kashmiri children have been the worst victims, naturally, because in any war and any conflict, the women and the children are the most vulnerable. And rape has been used as a weapon of war quite conveniently by the Indian forces to terrorize the people, to give up their struggle. And if you recall, in the early 90s, there was a very famous Kunan Poshpura rape case where the Indian army raided the village late at night, and they took all the men out of the homes and they took them and shifted them in their trucks to another village, and they locked them up. And the women and the little girls and children who were left behind, they didn't even spare babies. And from the age of 3 onwards till 75, they raped all the women and female folk. I mean, this is happening in today's world. It's not that far, even if it is 20 years ago. I mean, this is not Stone Age, what they did. There was forensic evidence. Even the State Department of America issued a lot of statements, Amnesty International, the world bodies. But till date, the Indian Army has never been prosecuted. The Indian Army...
Complete impunity.
Complete immunity because of the elections that take place over there. Because I want to connect the women and the children to the draconian laws which give the rights to this army. After every 5 to 4 years, elections take place in Indian-held Jammu and Kashmir. And these elections, they are not to raise a democratic voice for the people or to raise the issues of the people or the economic issues. There are numerous local issues that take place, but it's not for them. It's basically to put a stamp on all the draconian laws, like there's a TADA Act, there's an Armed Forces Special Powers Act, there's a Telegraph Act. You're a person from the media personality. They have this Telegraph Act to manipulate, to distort media reports, to distort the ratios, the surveys of the killings and of all the ratios of all the number of tortures and stories, and to totally wipe them out. Armed Forces Special Powers Act gives complete power, complete immunity to the forces to rape, to abduct, to burn houses, to burn the dead bodies, to put them behind bars, to do anything with them, to disappear the people and not be challenged or prosecuted for that, persecuted for that. This is the height of barbarism, because India is, for the world, one of the biggest democracies. But when you go and you visit Indian-held Jammu and Kashmir, they are the biggest violators of democracy. I mean, just imagine a state policy.
Why do you believe that the international community is turning a blind eye to the suffering of those women and young children in Kashmir?
There's a big question mark to that, because I feel that gone are the days when the world used to have great leaders ruling the world, ruling countries, that used to favor liberty and right to self-determination and morals. It is not bad to have business interests in other countries for business investments. But nowadays, Zainab, I look at it from this point of view that global leaders have become more of businessmen, businessmen. They just look at their business, that where they would get more
their
cash,
interests,
their interests, economic interests, and they totally ignore the aspect of peace and morality and human rights.
I want you to deliver a message to Yassin through our show, through Al Mayadeen TV. What would you say to him?
My message to him is that I'm truly blessed and truly lucky and blessed and honored to be your life partner, because every moment spent with him has always been so beautiful, because we've spent only around 60 days together in this 8 years of marriage, because whenever I used to get a visa, I would go and travel to Srinagar. After just 2 or 3 days, he would get arrested, and I would have to go to the jails to meet him, and hours of body searches, and then finally reaching my husband and spending just a few moments. But those moments are my whole world. And apart from my personal sufferings, I think that I'm not just married to Yassin Malik, I'm married to a revolution, to a freedom struggle. And every moment of this struggle has been very, very meaningful for me, that at least, I'm leading a life where I am raising a voice for an entire suppressed nation. That I'm not just living for myself or for the security of my family. If I had an option, I would have, gone for a normal life, married a man who would not be facing such kind of jails and prisons and insecurities and such high level.
It's another kind of resistance at the end of the day.
I think I'm lucky. Allah chose me towards this path of right to self-determination for such a huge nation, which is completely a voiceless nation right now, and their voice needs to go towards the world. And that's why I decided that, especially according to the UN 1315 resolution, that without the participation of women folk in conflict resolution, peace building, peace is impossible in the world. So I think I must bring forward the cases of the Kashmiri women and present them towards the world. And for that, I'm doing a grassroots mobilization drive in Pakistan also, and abroad also. I'll be starting very soon. That we also need space, we need to be recognized, and we need to be part of any kind of solution, the Kashmiri women and the children, who are the direct victims.
Right, so this is from Kashmir, Moshal Malik, chairperson of Peace and Culture Organization and wife of detained founder of the Jammu and Kashmir Liberation Front, Hurriyat Yassin Malik. Many thanks indeed for joining us from your home here in Islamabad.
I simply really enjoyed this interview. Thank you so much.
It's our pleasure, it's our honor, ma'am. إذا لقاء جديد في الأسبوع المقبل مع ضيف جديد وقضية جديدة ودائما من الداخل. للمزيد من التواصل بريدنا theinside@almayadeen.net وصفحتنا على الفيسبوك من الداخل، من كل فريق العمل من كل الميادين من إسلام آباد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.